Hey friends, welcome back. So I'm gonna try to show you briefly how I did this. I've had a number of my friends ask me about this, and oh, sorry, I have a kitty off. Sorry, I have an audience. Come on, come on, come on. Are you gonna photobomb us? Are you going to? Come on. Are you gonna photobomb? Come on, show my friend. Kitty bomb. There he is. Say hi, Felix. There he is. Okay, there's my kitty. Say hi, Felix. Say hi. Okay, time to go now. Go, scoot. Go on. Thank you. Okay, where was I? Anyway. Okay, well, I have a ledge with a window and he was apparently hiding there. Okay, anyway, so you can use containers like this. This, if you'll notice carefully, let's see if I can find it. That's how hard it is to find. Okay, I'm gonna pull up to the, so you guys can see. Do you see that, this little logo right here? This was a yogurt container that had like a little, you know, wrap thing over it or whatever to seal it. Yogurt, organic yogurt from Mom's Organic Food Market. You can use other things. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a candle holder. You can use, I got this at the dollar store. You could theoretically use something like this with that. I mean, there's endless ways to have fun with this sort of thing. And it don't have any more of these right here. And I've looked high and low. I looked at multiple dollar stores, which is where I got it to begin with. I could not find these anymore. Aren't they amazing though? Dollar store. I got those at a dollar, well, $1.25 now. Yikes. Even inflation has hit even the dollar stores. Okay, but these are a number of things that you can get at the dollar store. Different type, like I've seen these on Amazon, which is, I even looked on Amazon for more like this one. Couldn't even, I found the brand. So just, you don't have to spend tons of money. Really, you don't. Now, the first step you're going to want to do though is etch it. Okay. So I'm going to put this aside. Oh, and one other little hint before I forget. There is, I don't know if you guys can see it, and I didn't find this out or notice it until kind of after the fact, but you see that concave here? I wasn't paying attention to that, and there is a bump in the middle here. So when you put your candle in, get a little hot glue and just sort of hot glue it, and that way it won't flop around like mine did. Just food for thought. Okay, so you want to put on the etching cream first. Now, the tips I'm going to give you for that is, this is the Armor. I would recommend the brand name for this. It is a little pricey. And if it does turn brown, don't freak out. I had that happen to me and I was like, oh my gosh, did it go bad? It just happens. Somebody that was in the know told me that it still is good. It might have to use a little more of it maybe. Some of its effectiveness might go down a little. So, but I would recommend just get the brand name, you know. I got this at Hobby Lobby for about 17 bucks. It does last a fairly long time. So, depending on, you know, how often you use it. And my tip for putting this on really is, first of all, you want to protect your surface, and you can either use a little paper towel like this, or I have this old board. It was actually a gessoed board from Hobby Lobby at one point, and you can see that this one's been well used. And that's probably what I'm going to use here because I don't want to, you know, mess up my mat. Now, when you're putting on your etching cream, and this is the photo that I took, and that's kind of how it looks with the etching cream on it. Your best bet is to use a sponge like this, or a fairly mid soft, not like watercolors, mixed media type brush, not super soft like watercolor soft, but not hard either, not like acrylic brush hard. And you want to just get your etching cream and just layer it on like this, and you want to do a thick amount. Make sure you have a generous coating, and you don't want to also go over it like too many times repeatedly. You just want a nice smooth coat like that, till it's all coated. And it says on the thing to let it set for, I don't know, a couple minutes. I let mine set till it dries, and then I wash it off with hot water. But really, it really is critical to lay down a nice, thick, even layer. I mean, it's going to be a little clumpy. That's normal. But you don't want to just, like, do this over and over and over, okay? Because what's going to happen is it's going to etch it really unevenly. And it's going to look weird. And, you know, it's just not going to look good. And the paint won't adhere the same. And the reason why I do this is it takes off, look, I'll show you. It takes off, and you'll have to excuse the water jar. It takes off, if you see the glass has like a shiny coating on it. What the etching cream does is it takes off that outer shine, and it roughs up the surface so the paint will stick better, okay? Rinse that off once it's dry. And if sometimes you might have to touch it up a little bit more, but I would, again, do it very, very carefully, very smoothly, same procedure, because you can over etch it and then it just looks terrible and it won't work. So that's my recommendation for that. The other thing that I'm gonna say is what kind of paint you use kind of does depend what you do after, okay? You can use two different types of paint for this. You can use glass paint, kind of something like this. Sorry, this is covering up the freaking... Anyway, sorry about that. The tag's covering it up, but it says glass paint on it. They just don't care where they put those stickers, do they? Anyway, it's from Deco Art. I think there's probably other brands that do it, but that's that. And what the difference between this and the regular paint is that it's glassed and glazed ceramic paint, so it's just formulated different. It's formulated to go over surfaces like this and stick a little better. However, even if you use a glass paint, I would still recommend etching these to where they're a nice even frost like that, because it will stick better. And when we're done, I'll tell you how you can also seal it so that it's safe to at least, you know, burn a candle in. But you can use that kind of paint, and it comes in all kinds of colors and stuff like that. Hobby Lobby, Michael, Amazon, whatever. So you can do that. But what I would recommend, honestly, is to get something called a glass medium. Now, it is a little expensive, but it's worth it in the long run to me than having to buy like watercolor paint, acrylic paint, glass paint. It goes on, right? This is just one less type of paint you got to get for a project. So what you do with this is, it's by Liquitex, and now I'm sure glass medium is made in other brands besides Liquitex. I don't know. I haven't really researched that, but it says for acrylic mediums, which is why we have that. So what you do is you take your glass medium and you put a small amount of it. You don't need a lot. It depends on how much paint you're using. For a project like this, maybe a tablespoon. You don't need a ton of it, which is why it lasts. So I don't know if I have the sticker still on this. I don't. Okay. I think it was like between 15, somewhere around $15, maybe between 15 and 20. But it does last. So that's why, you know, when I do things like this, I tend to use dollar store stuff as much as possible, because the things like this can cost a little bit, like that and the etching cream. It can be a little expensive. So you take that and you mix that in with your paint, and it turns it into this, essentially. These two things are the things that might cost you the most money. If you can invest in that, the rest of it can be dealt with quite a bit cheaper. But those are your two big investments. Now, what I'm going to do is, I cannot do this exactly like this. But I thought this would be, I can do something similar. So I have these, and I thought since it's, you know, Valentine's is like next weekend, and I have my red paint, and at first I was like, nah, that's a little too, yeah, but it actually works. And this was kind of done with Christmas in mind, which, yeah. So I'm going to get my paints together and I will be back. So I have my paints, and one of the things that is going to be useful that really made this pop was at the end. What really made that pop was this. This is another thing you can get. It is Clear Galaxy Varnish. It like, it seals it, but this is what did this. It was, and I didn't need to add any extra glitter, like I don't know, like this for example. You know, this Deco art. It's not super expensive. I mean, yeah, I was looking to see if I had a price on it still, but no. It AP certified. All that means is, you know, non-toxic and stuff. It's not horrifically expensive. So that's the thing you're going to put on at the end. Some brushes here, and it's going to depend on, you know, how you want it. Now, I have one. Unfortunately I don't have it anymore because I did several of these and gave them away as gifts, which people absolutely loved. That always feels good, doesn't it? But this brush kind of will do like a little sweeping kind of thing. It's pretty cool. One of your crappy brushes that hopefully won't fall apart on me. Something like this. That's mid-soft. And, you know, I keep a lot of extra brushes with different sizes and tips around, just in case I decide I want to do something different. Here's a bigger version, which is probably the one I'll use, actually. You want that for your first initial layer. So I always work from light to dark. So I'm going to start with my lightest. Now, I have not used this particular metallic. Okay, this is what I have right here. Oops. And watch your drips. This is kind of what I'm using. I have not used that on this one. I did not. So I'm playing around a little bit. I almost forgot to add my stuff. This is about what I would suggest. That's about all you need. Because if you add too much, then it's going to get runny, and you don't want that. And just give it a nice stir. Now, if you're using multiple paints, don't forget to, you know, clean your popsicle stick. I did that once. Oh my gosh, it was, yeah, not good. Ta-da! Which you don't need a lot. Now, if you're doing a complicated project and your paint's going to be sitting out for a while, I'd recommend something called retarder. And what that does is it helps your acrylic paint dry a little slower. So, because once acrylic paint dries, it's not like watercolor where you can just, reactivate it. It doesn't work like that. So, I would strongly recommend that, but for this purposes, I don't think it'll matter. But that's just something I'm throwing out there. And you just grab your jar like so. Just want a nice smooth. And this is going to be sheer, and that's okay. And don't go over it like too many times, because then it just starts kind of smearing around and it looks weird. Yeah. And depending on how sheer you want it, is going to dictate how much paint you put on, obviously. The more you put, the more opaque it's going to be. But if you want a nice sheer look to start with, just put a little bit. So I was kind of thinking, I need some feedback from you guys. I don't get a lot of comments on my video, and I'm not sure why. It'd be nice to have some feedback from you guys, like what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? There are some things I can't do anything about, but there may be some things that I can fix. And, I kind of need to know, like, what you guys think of what I'm doing. Is there anything you would like to see in particular? So, we'll speed this part up, I guess, a little bit. So, I've got that part on. I think I'm going to kind of go back over this a little bit. But you do have to be really careful, because it can get clumpy and messy and icky and all that jazz. Okay, there we go. Ta-da! Alright, I'm going to rinse my brush off. Now, your best bet, if you want to do blending, is to go straight into it. But if you want that to set and kind of just be more defined, then go ahead and let it dry. The drying can depend on your humidity levels, like how dry your climate is, how dry your house is, etc. It can vary anywhere from a couple hours to a day. It just depends on your conditions. And obviously that can vary widely. So in this case though, I wanted to blend. So I'm going to take this cool little brush. Don't quote me, but I believe this is called a rake brush. See the, isn't that cool? And you can do some very cool things with bristles like that, which is why I pulled that out. So I'm going to take my, and also be careful where you put your fingers. I have more than once and it's not good. Oh, I would also recommend these two, these little containers. I got these at the dollar store for like a pack of 4 or 5 of them for $1.25. Y'all, just mediums can be a little, that's kind of an investment. So I'm going to take my little brush here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, actually, I think, since this isn't quite what I was planning on, is I'm going to do the base layer with this brush, and then I'm going to blend with that other brush. Oh, and make sure your water, when you rinse your brush, make sure your water is sufficiently drained off your brush, because it will make the paint not go on very nice on the glass. It will be weird. So that's just food for thought. But yeah, I think I'm going to use this first. So I'm going to speed this up and paint this all the way around, and then I will be back. Back, and I've got the majority of this covered. So, and you can wear gloves, by the way. I have some. I don't know, for whatever reason, didn't feel like putting them on. I want to let this dry a little bit, because when you go to blend it, it'll be more opaque and it'll blend better. It's really better to have that base layer, and this will dry some. That's not exactly ideal, but it's okay, because what I'm doing is I'm blending with that rake brush, and that will override the dryness of this part of it. So sometimes if you want to blend, you know, it's better to do it when it's wet, but you know, as I said, when you have a brush like this, it kind of overrides that a little bit. So I'm gonna let that dry, and then I will be back. Okay, so I have let that dry, and then I just applied a fresh coat of the red with my regular square brush. And they can be fun to do all kinds of fun things with. You can do grass with them. They're really cool brushes to just play around with. Now, if you want, you can put another layer of your lighter coat over that. Really doesn't matter. And I haven't done the bottom because I'm going to do something a little bit different with that. So I'm going to take my little rake brush here. And I also need to be able to hold the end of it. And, you know, not get paint all over my fingers. So, okay. You grab your... Now the key to this is to have just the right amount of paint. And you can see that I'm kind of dipping it in like this. Well, hopefully you can. Okay, yeah. Just straight up and down like that. You don't want too much. Like, I got a little too much there, so you want to get off just I'd say that's probably about what you want, something like that. And all you got to do is just kind of, you don't want too much, because this is supposed to just be like an embellishment. It's not like the main coat. But do you see the little marks that it's leaving? The little textured marks? And if it helps, you can also take your brush and just sort of dab it like that on your paper towel. You just don't want to have like too much, like a mid-level amount of paint. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing here. I've never tried to teach this to anybody, so this is kind of a new thing for me too, but it's just so much fun and it's so easy. You don't have to do it this way. I mean, but it did make for some really, really cool textures. And you can vary the height of it, like bring this up a little more, bring that one a little lower. And you do kind of want to just blend it in a little bit too. Sorry if I keep turning it around. I'm trying to, the light's being weird in here. You kind of want to eventually blend that out before it dries. And I can tell here I've got a little too much paint. So I'm going to just kind of go around with that. And what I'll do when I get to the bottom of this, see how I'm kind of just very lightly using a really light hand, just sort of blending this out a little bit so that it's not so defined. And you can take this and pull it up as high or as low as you want. I recommend making it nice and uneven because it just gives it makes it like dance around the cup a little bit. But again, not too much paint like I had there just a second ago. Then it just gets to be a little weird. It doesn't work as well for me anyway. If you guys have suggestions of things you'd like to see, if it's within my wheelhouse, I will give it a go. Anything you would like to see me review, I love doing reviews. That's like one of my favorite things. Something in particular you would like a book like you would like me to color from or paint something. I'm not like a greatest freehand artist, you guys. It's really not. I'm working on it. I'm definitely open to suggestions. The reason why I'm going from different directions like this is because it tends to affect how the paint goes. Like when you're going one way and then you turn around and go a different direction, it kind of affects the look of it. And it gives it a little more, I don't know, fluidity. And that's kind of what I want with this. And you also got to watch out because as this dries, if you have too much paint, like I had there for a bit, it happens if you like are doing this and you go a little too high up, like say it's way, like how this is sort of creeping up. See I'll show you how to fix that. We'll watch this. See the marks that's making? And you want to just do very lightly, just kind of give it some direction. You don't want to go up too high though, because it'll kind of, your stickers will, and you don't have to use the stickers. I just sort of discovered that I do not like. That doesn't show up as well, I think. I just kind of discovered the sticker thing. I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay. Now I want a little bit more here, so I'm just gonna kind of play around with that. And it adds texture. That's all it does. It's really cool. Now, this is getting a little junky, so I'm gonna have to be careful here. By junky, I mean it's not like. Okay, so what you can do if you don't like how that is, and I'm just checking the sides to make sure everything's kind of roughly the way I want and there's no overt clumps. So that's why I keep moving it around. It's important, especially when your light is being weird, that you kind of check your angles and stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is pull out some more of this metallic stuff, and I'm going to have to add some more medium, not very much, just a drop or two, before it dries too much. And it must be very dry up here because my paint's drying very quickly. So don't forget about that retarder that I mentioned. It's not horrifically expensive, but it is a worthwhile medium to get if you use acrylic paints and you have a lot of different kind of paint out. As I said earlier, it stops it from drying as quickly, which just saves you paint. All right, so being careful to grab it by where it's not wet. Okay, now what you want to do is grab your rake brush and this is how I recommend sticking this in. Just like that, and then just give it a little swipe. And I don't like how that's at the top of the bristles, so you want to kind of just go like that. That's about what you want. You don't want a lot, but not a little. It's the mid-road. So if you want to bring that down a little bit, do you see how they're kind of blending into each other a little bit? And just really like a drag flick. Just kind of like that. You gotta make sure. You can always go back in with the other paint and go back the other direction until you're happy with it. Hey, do me a favor. If you guys are enjoying this video whatsoever, please consider liking and subscribing it and commenting, please. Some kind, I don't mind as long as you're respectful. I have no problems with that. It really helps me out on the back end. I am really definitely trying to grow my channel to at least 1,000 subs so I can do some different things as far as, like, you know, monetization goes and all that. So it would be greatly appreciated. And as you kind of blend these, you see how it's kind of smearing a little and softening? And I'm not putting it back into the paint. And so it's kind of like when you're burnishing with a wax pencil, a little bit. But there comes a point though where it will, you will need to put a little paint in, because otherwise it will just start moving the underlayer a little bit too much. And you don't want that too much. Like, you want it a little, just not too much. And I'm using a very, very, very light hand. Like, I'm not pushing at all. I'm barely touching the brush to the glass. That's a little clumpy, so I'm going to smooth that out. And that's one of the things you can do when it gets clumpy like that before it's... Watch how hard your rake brush gets, though. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you got to watch out, because after a while it can get a little too coated with the paint, and then it won't leave the nice marks that you want. So just keep an eye on the paint level in your brush, and, you know, once in a great while when you're doing at this stage, you might want to just give it a good rinse. Make sure you dab it on a paper towel, because you don't want too much water. This is not watercolor, this is acrylic. So there, let's try that again. And I just kind of go like that, because at this stage I just want a little bit. This is at the finessey stage, as I call it. You want just a little. I'll turn it sideways so you can see her. Hopefully that's a little better. You see how that's starting to blend together? Just barely put your brush into the paint. But this is where things start to take shape a little bit. Now that is definitely a little overworked. I'm not happy about that, but I'll fix it. Well, if I can do it, you can do it. I promise. I'm not speeding this part up because I want you guys to see how I make this little, this part's important. Ugh, it's better with it this way. What do you guys think? Not too bad. Kind of like it. Now, if you really want to, you can go back over it with the, I recommend something called pink soap for your nicer brushes. It's very gentle. It really does a good job of cleaning your brushes without like causing a bunch of deterioration and things like that. Okay. All right. That will do for now. So what I'm going to do is take my popsicle stick and I'm going to mix a couple paints. And I got to put my glass medium into it also. I won't need too much of this, so this should be enough, but you never know. I'll do a little more. Okay, that should do. This one's so old I can't even tell what it is. I'm sorry, it's so dirty. I'm gonna scrape out the paint. I'm sorry. Hold on. Wow. Okay, guys, I don't know. I'm sorry. Oh god, this. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's folk art. There's what the lid looks like, if that helps you any. Just any craft store. Jeez, I'm sorry. It's a really beautiful dark red. I love it. This is just metallic paint from Deco Art. Extreme Sheen. Oh, it says Ruby on it. Wow. Main red was this multi-surface satin paint, apple red from folk art. So those are the paints that I used, and I mixed a couple in because I wanted to do a little blending at the bottom. I wanted it to be similar but not, and I can grab right here because I was working toward this part, so I can grab this part because it's dry. I want it to be a little darker, and that's why I added that darker red in, but not totally different, so that's why I mixed in a little bit of the other red, just, you know, so it has some continuity, but it's just a little bit, it adds depth, I guess. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. And as you can see, it goes on. I'm applying it fairly thickly. It is the bottom, so I want it to be pretty, you know, I want it to be able to withstand being sat on and having like a candle burned in it and stuff. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry and I will be back. So that's dry. What you want to do, especially when you're now I'm gonna stick my fingers in here, is when you add in like a darker shade, you want to make sure that you kind of blend that in. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that and just kind of lightly, just, I mean, I put, you see I've got very little paint on here, just enough that it kind of blends it in, and use a very light hand. And you see how I'm just gently blending this slightly darker red in, so that you can't even, you don't want to see like a hard line between that and here. You just want to, just enough to kind of blend it in. There's many ways. If you look through my journey through art 2024 video, which I'll try to post it a link to at the end. I show the other glasses that candle holders that I did before I gave them away as gifts, and you'll see there's multitude of ways to do this. It's really up to you. Ta-da. And I'm just making sure there's no hard lines so that they can't see really a big difference. Ta-da! I don't think so. Ta-da! Okay, so let that dry for a little bit, and ta-da! The last thing is I'm going to add this and my stickers. Now, this part can be a little tricky. Okay, so let's get a fresh towel for starters. And by the way, these, I would highly recommend these if you don't have them and you paint and craft a lot. These things are the best thing ever. Like, I get these by the case at here, let me move this real quick. I gotta show you guys. This stuff is amazing. But put up a Kleenex, and they're hand towels. They are the most amazing thing. If you're doing like crafts and painting and things like that, they're like paper towels on steroids. So fantastic things. This is enamel paint, so it's glass paint, so I don't need to add any of the glass medium that we talked about. Argent, silver, sterling silver, or silver sterling, by Folk Art. And I'm just gonna use what's in the lid and just gonna go around it. Sometimes you might have to do a couple. And this is where like a different smaller type brush that's thin. I think these are called filberts if I'm not mistaken. It's a line. It says liner number 2. Anything like that will do. You can also use ones like this if you want. Depends on, you know, the size. So, I'm back, and one thing I want to point out is don't paint the inside. You saw me just wiping it with the inside to make sure I didn't have any paint, because you're going to be using it as a votive, you know, and unless you use one of those like fake LED type lights, you really don't want the paint on the inside. It just makes things a little more complicated than it has to be. So that's why I just kind of check the inside to make sure there's not a whole bunch of paint. And I'll probably touch this up later, but either way, that's how that goes. So, but it doesn't matter that much, because what we're gonna do is apply our stickers. Ta-da! Okay, and this is so easy. Oh, let me put this lid on this. This is so easy, guys. It just takes patience. And it's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so everything is good and dry now. And I've kind of played around with it a little bit more because, I don't know, I'm just picky. Now this is the tricky part, okay? It's tricky, but it's totally doable. Besides making sure that everything is thoroughly dry. I mean, it can be a tad tacky, but that's okay. You need stickers that are like this, or you can do individual ones. You know, you don't have to use this kind. I would recommend this kind personally. It makes it a whole lot easier than putting them on one by one, but you can certainly do that. And I got these at the dollar store, so, well, $1.25. Really, they should change their name, don't you think? All right, get this out of the way. Be very careful, because once you lay it down, you're gonna have a hard time, and that's gonna have to go. I don't need that sticking. You can run the risk of pulling up the paint because it's not being cured. So just make sure that it's kind of where you want it. Because once you apply the varnish, you know, you're gonna not be able to really move it around so easily. So, and you can see that I'm kind of getting to where I'm starting to overlap. So I'm gonna grab my scissors, which are hopefully lurking about. Hold on. Sometimes this can be a little tricky, especially when your one good eye decides it doesn't want to work. And you got the important tip here is to clip it right at just the right spot. Kind of found out the hard way with one of them that I clipped it kind of wrong and it didn't look right. Like it just looked weird. I don't know how else to say it, but it just. And if it's like a little uneven, like this is a little uneven, you can just gently, let me put that down. Aren't these beautiful? Dollar store, you guys, seriously. You can gently just coax it down with your thumb and your fingernail, but be very careful. Be very careful. That should do it though. Reasonably happy with where that's going. Okay, cool, we're done. Now, we're gonna break out this. Pour a little bit of this into the cup. Now, it may not look like much at first. All right, let's move this stuff out of the way. And save your scraps too, by the way. Grab your stuff. Check this out. You're not going to see anything at first. Nice, even layers. You don't want, you see how it's kind of streaky? You want to smooth that out. Okay, you want to make sure that's nice and smooth, but nice, thick, but smooth layer. Okay? And if you want to go over the stickers, you can. It won't hurt. Just makes them extra sparkly. And who doesn't need a little sparkle in their life? Seriously. We all need a little extra sparkle. I can never have enough. It's good stuff. But you see how I'm just kind of doing it nice and smooth. And if you need to do more than one layer, let it dry between layers. But I would recommend no more than 2. And I'm just going to kind of go over this because I want to get kind of what's underneath of it. But go easy when you're going over the stickers. Don't go over too hard. I'm doing the main part primarily first because when that dries, if it dries and it dries relatively fast, it can look a little weird. So, and the more you put on here though, the more sparkly it will be. So, It doesn't look like anything now, but you'll see as it starts to dry, that's when the magic happens. It's just incredible. This stuff like kind of blew my mind. I did not expect it to look like that. Like the other jar that you saw, I was not expecting that at all. But it is varnish, so make sure that you're happy with your and also make sure it's relatively dry. Like it can be a tad tacky and that's okay, but make sure it's like 9/10 dry at least, because otherwise you can run the risk of disturbing the paint because it hasn't been cured. Like that. Can you guys see what's happening already as it dries? And then this one I'm going to start going over this stuff because it also will seal this end as well as the paint that's underneath of it. Don't put your fingers on it. Check this out. This stuff is phenomenal. Deco art. Just to go over that again. Deco art. I'm putting a little more at the top here because I have paint there and I want that to seal. I'm not doing the bottom, but I'm going to go over the top just a little bit. Just a little bit. I have to do this carefully because I really don't have the right kind of brush, but I can make it work. And it'll be fine. See? No problem. Problem solved. Yeah, it happens. Ta-da. Now that that's done, ooh, and it's already halfway dry, I'm going to put my fingers in here to make sure that there's no paint. And that's really important, okay? Get like your little paper towel and make sure, or Q-tip, which I should have, but I don't because I forgot it. And make sure there's no paint. My finger will work. Make sure there's no paint on the inside. There. And it's already starting to dry. So I've let this dry for a bit. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that amazing, you guys? Look at that. You don't want to use something like this. You can use other, like regular glitter. There's this, like this galaxy glitter. You can use this, this. So you don't have to use this, but I like this because it seals it, varnishes it, and puts the glitter in all the same go. It's like it saves me a step. So that's entirely up to you, but before you put it in the oven, make sure you're done with it. You're happy with it. Because once you bake it, that's it. 325 for 20 minutes. Put it in the oven cold. Let it heat up with the oven. And let it cool down completely. Like I would give it at least a half an hour before you even open the door. Minimum. And you should be good to go. You could just put your little thing in there. Make sure you put the hot glue spot to keep it in place, and there you go. Voila. So one last thing I want to remind you guys of. For demonstration purposes, I did not fire this before I put the stickers on. So just an important reminder, because we all do dumb stuff. Make sure that you put the stickers on after you've cured it, okay? And then what you can do is grab the sparkly this and put another layer over it. After you've let it thoroughly cool, you can put another layer of this over, or clear varnish, you know, whatever you want, and that will help seal this in. But do not put this in the oven with this on. because even though it's a low temperature, it will melt it. And I don't think you want that. I know I wouldn't want that. So I just wanted to remind you guys not to, you know, put this in the oven with the stickers on. Just FYI. So anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's a beautiful, easy, fun thing to make, and I hope you have a great time with it. If you choose to try this, I would love, love, love to see the results. You can go to my, I have an alternative Facebook page called Sherry's Creations. And I would love to see what you do with it. It would be very cool to me to see if anybody decides to give this a go. So with that said, guys, have a blessed one. Love you all. Bye. Oh, and happy Valentine's Day.